Oahspe, some people interpret it that it's going to happen exactly as it says, with the person called Tay and S and the 50 children, and everything's the same. But from my point of view, it's actually a model. It's showing, and it's not only showing one community, it's showing the events that are going to happen with the humanity, people, as they are inspired, and as the light comes and as they're inspired towards Jehovah's kingdom on earth. These are the kind of things that are going to occur. And in some of them we already see that some of these have already happened. For instance, when they were finding the alternatives to milk, when the cows got sick and they needed to find an alternative, so that everything that was in the animal kingdom would be found in the plant kingdom. And this is what is happening, and this is already happened. It happened back there when they made alternative milk from soya and rice and other cereals. That was back in the 1900s. They already did that. And there's alternatives in the plant kingdom, like for instance wax, tallow wax. You can use soya. They make soya candles. So all these things are happening. And so from our point of view, these are events that are going to happen on a wide basis. And it's not just going to be one community. This one community is talking about the first communities. So this, because it's happening not only in one country, like America, was established so that there could be a model for a republic, and then other places are following too.
So the first statement here is verse 60 of chapter 3 of Jehovah's Kingdom on Earth. And it says, "As for the grave's opening, I have nothing to do with that. Though regarding the spirits of the dead appearing face to face with the living, behold, that has been accomplished now for more than 30 years. So there was a side question on that. 30 plus years since when and why? The spiritualism movement actually took off and flourished from 1849 essentially to 1882 for a generation or a spell. So when Oahspe was published, that kind of thing, the spirit manifestations had been going on already for over 30 years. When this was coming through Newborough, and Newborough was going to get it published, it wasn't real clear as to when Newborough was going to publish it. So they had to say 30 plus years, more than 30 years. This what S said to me, or what I perceived anyway, from this is sort of a the vanity of mortals, because Oahspe was not just for mortals; it was also for spirits of the first resurrection in Atmospheria, and so it was for them as well. And so while they were not mortal children up there, they were spirits of children that needed to be tended to and everything like that. So it focused, and whether or not there was something like that going on up there or not, I don't know. But it's possible that something like that had been established in Atmospheria around that time. We just don't know. As was earlier said, that this antiscript, which means it's written in a way as if it had already happened, but even though it's a future projection, it's like it's not a blueprint per se. It's not saying, well, this is exactly, but it sort of gives the parameters within which these type of things are going to unfold. And so they put it into story form because it's easy reading, it's easy to understand, and and as mentioned, it's not a literal man named Te and a literal woman named Es and all these literal Aborn and Thurdus and all these other characters that come and try to manifest Jehovah's kingdom on earth. It's not like it's gonna actually literally turn out that way. But what they're talking about is they're talking about archetypes, people who actually flow in that spirit, the spirit of Aborn, the spirit of Thurtus, the spirit of Sutta, and all those names that are there. You'll see now these are not bad people. These are people who are answering the call of Te. Now, what's the call of Te? The call of Te is to do the best you can for mankind. And what Jehovah's Kingdom on Earth is telling us is that, well, okay, everything is falling short of that except for this. This is the only thing that actually hits the nail on the head, so to speak, that exactly gets the bullseye, exactly, perfectly answers what Jehovah's Kingdom on Earth is. And the establishing of it. And the other things, this is what fraternity is about. This is the time of fraternity that's going to be coming forward. Is that you're going to have people who are like Aborn or Thurdus or Sutta, all these different people that are there. And they're going to want to, hey, let's do this. Let's build a better society, a better social order, a better way of living. And that's their idea of, how to go about doing it. So you're going to see all these during the time of fraternity. But amongst those times of fraternity, you're also going to have faithists. And a faithist fraternity, several different types of faithist fraternities, actually. And it's... and it's like a process that unfolds. It's not something that when you read it in the story, it seems like, oh, it's happening just all at once, over the course of like a year or two. And in actuality, it's more like a couple hundred years, to 300 to 400 years.
From what Newber tells us, the book was brought through his hands around 1880, 1881, 1880 probably. Yeah, so that makes it around 30 plus years, just over 30 years.
Yeah.
So the authors who wrote this are already writing 30 plus years after the beginning of Cosmon.
Yeah, this is not Nubro writing.
And why he chose 30 plus years and not about, for example, 100 plus years or 200 plus years?
Because this is when Oahspe was written. Oahspe was written somewhere around 1879, 1880, maybe 1881, but probably before
not,
that.
Yeah,
probably 1880 or 1879. But probably 1880. Anyway, so if they're writing it in 1880, the angels, the authors, are writing this in 1880. Well, this has been going on for more than 30 years already. The spiritual communion that they're talking about, the communication, seeing the spirits and of the dead coming up out of the graves and all that. And so, so they said, okay, this is accomplished now for more than 30 years. Well, okay, now if it's been accomplished for more than 30 years, that means any time after that, these things could happen. Because they didn't happen during that first 30 years. But 30 years after Oahspe was out, published, then these things were going to happen. So, if you're writing for in the future, if you're writing about the future, and you're writing as if it's happening now, you can't predate yourself, or you can't. That's just how they chose to do it. I mean, to me, I don't really have a problem with it. But do you understand that more than 30 years, it means that it could be. It's sometime in the future.
But it's saying it has been accomplished now for more than 30 years. To me, it's saying
what's the spirits of the dead appearing
so
face to face.
it has been accomplished now. So it's actually been going on for more than 30 years.
Yes.
That's what they're saying.
Right.
But we know, because we live beyond that there were mediums and there were still circles and people still. But it diminished. It diminished as time went by, and now the mediums that exist see them, and they prove it by giving information and helping people to know that they're past ones. But the mediums are the only ones that can see the spirits now, because that time of Sargas is gone, because it's no longer the dawn of the era. The Creator only allowed that for the beginning of the era. So for those 33 years, and just about anyone could be a medium if they were interested, because it was propitious for that. That was in the atmosphere. The angels are working for that, because that's what happens at the beginning of a cycle.
Well, the 30 plus years, it's one generation, one spell, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Regarding this first verse, of course, this refer to spiritual movement and this kind of spirit communication. Well, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, the spiritual movement began around
49,
48, 49.
49, 48, 47, 46.
Yeah,
just
it was
depends.
even before that. There were some people already receiving messages, and so and that even went on over that too. It went beyond, but that was the height and the peak of it. So that kind of answers the next question in a way, doesn't it? Because the next question is, but since you've not proved the communion of angels during all these years, how do you hope to labour for the Father's kingdom?
But since you have not proved the communion of angels during all these years, how do you hope to labour for the Father's kingdom? To all such I say, go your ways, I have no use for you. Now remember, this is Te. Now who's Te? Te is the highest expression of mankind. It's not just an individual either. It's Te is a son of Jehovih. He's an entity. He's like a template that we can fulfill. That we can try to fulfill. Just like we try to become one with Jehovah, we can try to become one with Te. Become like Te. We try to become like Jehovah, we can try to become like Te. And so that's who Te is. Te is those who are up at the top, who are closest to actually fulfilling what Te does. So in any society and in any group, you'll have someone who is and on the top of the pyramid, or whatever, however you want to describe it. But there'll be a small group up there, and there'll even be one at the very top. Well, in the heavens of the earth, that office is called God. So when Te is talking here, we shouldn't think of just one individual like me or you or Ruth or somebody talking and saying, okay, this and that. But it's like a movement. It's like a spirit. Te represents the actual highest expression of man, and what Te is saying is that you guys, even though you're trying to do good or whatever, you're not measuring up to that. You haven't reached that level to where you can actually. You can do good. You can do good and everything, but it's not going to be the highest good. There's a level that that represents the All Highest, and this is what's being set forth here, and what that All Highest is. It's not that you just have the All Highest and then nothing else. These are all people who, after all, did respond to the spirit of Te. They're trying to do good. They're trying to bring about the Father's kingdom. And they're just, and so what Te is saying, or what the Spirit, what this template is saying, if you want to think of it in that sense, is that, well, unless you have communion of Spirit, unless you've proved communion of Spirit, you're not the All Highest yet. You haven't reached the All Highest yet. You haven't entered the gate, so to speak, and be amidst the brotherhood of Te, so to speak. You may be you're moving toward that, but you're not there yet.
All right. So now let's talk about what it means by prove the communion of angels, because it doesn't mean you're going to go and say to people, well, okay, I'm going to show you an angel now, and it's going to prove it. So it doesn't mean like that, literally going in, because a lot of people can't sense angels, and their disbelief doesn't allow them to even begin to, because they're in their disbelief, they're in clouds and darkness. So it must mean that proving the communion of angels must mean that you must be aware and know it for a fact.
Yes, exactly. And what communion of angels means is a spiritual thing. It means being at one with, understanding them, understanding their spirit, being one with their spirit, the spirit that they are, because as a second resurrection is one. But also knowing
for a truth that the spirits live after death. It's not just a belief, you know it for a fact.
Right.
You know it.
Well, that's true, that's right.
Your mind and your soul and
that's right.
Your senses.
That's right. That's the first resurrection.
Yeah. So
right, and they're not differentiating here. So they're just talking about communion of angels. So you're probably right about that. Yeah.
Because you must, to understand the Great Spirit, you have to understand Spirit.
Right. First.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
so for all aspirants,
yeah,
Jehovah provides for them to experience Spirit objectively.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, it happens.
And that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a certain way that you expect it. It happens according to the way the Creator organizes it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're...
And some people may have already opening the door for them, but they're still not ready for it to open for them. So, it's already... So they become spiritualized and they don't really recognize it yet. So that they still have to... there's still time for them to open the door, because it won't have...
It's an objective perception
will be objective.
rather than a subjective.
Yeah, it's going to be. Even though a person is growing towards that, there's a point where they know for sure it is a truth, because it's like waking up in the morning and seeing sunlight. Right.
And until then, you're just trying to do good.
Yeah.
These people are trying to do good in the world. They're growing toward that and everything, and they might think, hey, we're all that, we're all that, we're all that. And really they're not yet, but but until they get that objective perception of spirit, and this does not even mean like an out of the body experience, because you can have an out of the body experience, but not just objectively necessarily know that spirit exists, just depending upon whether you, first of all, you got to believe it. For example, I know somebody who went out of their body and they didn't believe it. And therefore, they didn't believe...
What did they think?
Yeah, well, they thought, oh, it's a hallucination of some sort. And so they didn't believe it. They just thought, well, there's something weird going on, but they didn't make that connection and to understand that, hey, this is my spirit coming out from my physical body, and perceiving that I am a spirit, I can, or perceiving other spirits. So it's like that's like the first step or the first level or the first hurdle, whatever, or that a person has to first accomplishment that a person needs to get to in order to progress further toward Te.
Yeah, and also the second resurrection, which is towards Jehovah's kingdom on earth, because that's already the second connecting with the third resurrections.
Right. Right. Does this imply that communion of angels is a prerequisite for those who want to join the founding of JKOE? If yes, why is this a key requirement? So I think we answered why it was a key requirement, but now the other part of this question here, communion is a prerequisite for those who want to join the founding of Jehovah's kingdom on earth. Yes, it is a prerequisite, but we have to remember bear in mind what founding of Jehovah's kingdom on earth is. And the actual founding, now what they're talking about here, the founding of Jehovah's kingdom on earth, they're talking about founding it in its fullness. Because it was actually founded way back at the time of the Republic, when the Republic first came. That was the beginning of it. Because why was it the beginning? Because it established the inorganic first resurrection on the earth. You got to have, that's the very first resurrection, inorganic first resurrection. If you don't have that, then you don't have a basement or a base. You don't have a foundation. You got to have that first step. It's the first step above the beast level. Is that inorganic first resurrection. That's self-improvement. Hey, I want to get better. I want to do this. I want to learn this. I want to learn that. I want to be good at doing this and good at doing that. And I. And then they're doing it for self's sake. Now the organic first resurrection, which is the next step up, says, I want to do this for your sake, Jehovah. And I want to learn to do it, help me to learn to find my place here so then I can be more effective in working with my brethren in helping to make a better condition here on earth. So really, what you're asking there, King Ling, is it a prerequisite to want to join the founding of the fullness of Jehovah's kingdom on earth? And the answer is yes for that. But for the other one, no, it's not necessarily a prerequisite. Well, it depends upon where we are during our man's progression. I mean, it will come to that. We'll approach that in time to come. But right now, we're not there. We're still moving toward fraternity at the moment. So we're still in the organic first resurrection phase. And the organic first resurrection phase, that focuses on Jehovah, and it says, "Oh, Jehovah, I want to be your servant. I want to figure out how best to help, where I should be, where's my place, my part, and I'm doing the best I can to help it all, to do what I can to help everything work out well and help me to interact with my brothers and sisters so that we can create a better condition for mankind." Now that does not even require the communion of angels necessarily, because you can still want to have better conditions and you don't even have to call on Jehovah. That's what it says in Oahspe too. Whatever name that you give the Creator. But if you're talking about the Great Spirit, not a person sitting on a throne somewhere, not a person in the form and figure of a man, and the highest light and all that stuff, then that's in the right direction, and that's like, well, you're not quite there yet as far as communion of angels. You might or might not be. You might say, yeah, there's angels, but not necessarily understand that the organization of heaven or anything like that, other than just a sense that they might be born with or have developed. So in order to do good, well, the communion of angels, it helps actually to know. It gives one a more sure base, a more secure base, in going forward. And I'm talking about the inner foundation and the soul, and being more sure of oneself and one's anchorage.
Jehovah's kingdom is it's already in heaven, so Jehovah's kingdom on earth has to be a direct link. It's like so without communion of angels, it's not Jehovah's kingdom on earth because there's no direct link.
Right. Right.
You know, it can't be separate and isolated from it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, I was going to mention in that regard is that remember the people those 7 men who helped found the Republic here in Gautama, that they were under the inspiration of the second resurrection, and yet the communion of angels, I don't, you know, it's not, they didn't have that. That wasn't, but their purpose was to found the inorganic first resurrection on the earth, a place where man could be free to develop himself.
This is understandable, and I agree with this, and I think that the right communion with angels could be only if a person is, if one is clear, if he or she stepped through some kind of clearance or cleaning of the body and the spirit. So to hear the right angels and to commune with right spirits.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And this is another point of proving. I feel that this kind of communion with angels could be one side, could be from their side only, and you as one as a recipient and listener, as a receiver of these signals or signs from angels, and this also could be a communion, I think.
Yeah, if you're aware that it's coming from them. See, the beauty of the communion of angels, though, it actually goes beyond that. Well, I'm talking about the communion of the second resurrection now, is that an understanding that it's the Great Spirit through the angels. It's the angels are acting in behalf of the Great Spirit, the second resurrection and above. And so it isn't really about them or their personalities, but they're like a conduit through which the information comes to us, and then we do what we do with it, impart it, hopefully, build with it.
What exactly is communion of angels? And why time require them to prove?
Okay, communion, the word communion means literally with union. And so you're feeling with union, in union with the angels. And this is a sense, ability that you have inside. This is a knowing that you can attain to. And so,
what are we doing here? We're communicating. What we're doing here, we're having a kind of a communion.
Yes, because we're communicating.
Yeah, so we're communing here. We're talking to each other. Mm-hmm. We can't commune with you know, physical contact like that, but we have a communion that's real to us. I can see you. I know Japan's over there in Russia. I know you're over in Malaysia. And so to us that's real, so we have a form of communion. And it's proven to us. We can say, yes, we know that, and we can remember what we talked about. So this is the proof that it's actually real to us. Someone else might not know about it, but that doesn't matter. We don't. It's not proving it to the world. It's a proof that it's a true thing and it's objective. We understand it with our senses and with our mind. So a communion of angels won't necessarily be over a internet connection. It could be in a dream, it could be in a feeling, it could be in a knowing, the presence of a particular angel, someone who you knew, and so you know for sure who that is because you have an intimate relationship with that person. So it's not one particular form; it's various forms. But the person themselves has the senses to know what it is, and the mind. So that's communion. Communion is covers any a wide range of a relationship that you could have.
Okay, so that means we have to kind of know an angel. We maybe can talk to the angel, or we see the angel.
Or we can sense. We can sense them with a sense. It's you can feel it. You might sense it. You might sense it in your heart. You might sense it in a feeling that you have, or a thought. It's different people have different development. So it's a personal experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean it's subjective. A personal experience is not the same as subjective. Some people confuse that. You say, well, okay, yeah, well, no one else knows about it, so it's just subjective. You prove it to me and I'll know it's subjective. No, you yourself will know whether it's subjective or objective to you.
Right, right. Now I'll give you an example on that. Now, I was raised up out of my physical body when I was very young, and I didn't know exactly what it was, and then I came back in it. But there was a time also that a spirit manifested in Sergis, a hand actually, from about the right there behind the wrist forward, and it went like that, and it touched me like that, and it was like it was the weirdest sensation. It was all like very cold and it was heavy, and it was very strange. But now that's an objective reality.
To you?
Yeah, to me, exactly. Because that's. Now I had the other objective reality too. Only I didn't understand exactly what it was. But this second thing, I knew exactly what it was. And so it can come, like Ruth said, in many different ways. But it has to be proved to a person. Somehow they will objectively know that it's actually true and real.
I mean, what about the story of Zarathustra, and he was put in the lion's den, and the angels shut the lions' mouths. Now that's angel communion, but people would only see that the lions just wouldn't eat him. They were supposed to eat him, and they wouldn't do it. So that would be a proof to someone who would sense that the angel is stopping them. They'd say the angel is stopping those lions, and so people say, what are you talking about? And you just know it, and so that's a proof. You can't say, I know what that angel looks like. What does he look like? Does he have wings? Well, no, I can't see that. But I just know that there's an angel there. I can feel it.
Okay, according to this phrase, he will be rejected by time.
Yeah.
Although he has a very good intention, a very good heart, he's very righteous, but he just can't prove the communion of angels.
Right. Yeah, well, what that means is that Tay is not rebuking them, so to speak. He's not saying, you've been, very bad, get out. But what he's doing is he's saying, well, look, this is our focus. This is my focus right here. These orphans, this is my focus. Okay, I can't, you do what you're going to do as for the Father's kingdom. That's between you and Jehovah. But this is what we're doing here, and so this is our focus, and so and our focus depends upon, with these children, depend upon communion of spirit. And if you haven't attained to that, well, then you're not going to be of any help in this. Now, you might be helpful somewhere else doing something else, But that's between you and the Creator. But as far as the work, if I'm Tay and I'm saying as far as the work that I'm doing, I've got to. We have to continue doing what we're doing here and building in this way. And if you don't have communion of angels, you're not going to be of any help like this. You're going to actually be like a blind person stumbling about, knocking over stuff.
Because there's limitations.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say was, this is not speaking in today, because today we're at the pre-stages of Jehovah's Kingdom on earth. Now, like Vernon said before, we're reaching the first resurrection.
Organic.
The organic first resurrection. Yeah. So that's just wanting to get better for the sake of the Creator, for the sake of a higher good than oneself.
Mm-hmm.
And but that is a stage where people start to clean and become better and more susceptible to angel communion of a higher sense. Now we know from Oahspe that everyone is influenced by angels.
All the time.
Yeah, all the time. We don't know it. So we can't prove it, in other words, those that we don't know it all the time. But sometimes we know it, and some people never know it. But anyway, what I'm saying is,
mortals,
it's happening there. And but when a person starts to go on the organic first resurrection, they're starting to improve for the sake of the Creator, and then then that will come. That will come in time. Everyone is different. So that sense of the Spirit and being objectively sensing the Spirit, which includes angel, being able to see angel not necessarily with your physical eyes, but with your senses, and hear and feel. So, but that comes after the first resurrection. Now, there are people who are born with suus, but we can't be sure of their grade. You know, their grades vary, and so that they also are dependent on that on joining the organic first resurrection to work for a higher good. And there are people who have suus who do try and do that, and they help people. They help people with their abilities. But what I'm trying to say is that from today, people can work towards Jehovah's Kingdom on earth at any time, but with the actual manifestation
or fulfillment,
or the manifestation of Jehovah's Kingdom on earth, as a second resurrection, it takes that sense to know where it's going. Otherwise, as Vernon said, it would be like someone stumbling around and knocking things over because they don't know they're there. You don't know something's there, you can walk through it and be destructive. So the spiritual life that these children are developing needs people around them who can acknowledge it and foster it. Mm-hmm. So that's if you read through Jehovah's Kingdom on earth, the children have suus, and their suus is developed, and their teachers help them to do that. And the teachers are not just teachers; they're carers. So that's the other question. One of the questions was, are there no teachers? We all teach to a certain degree, but we're not just teachers. Like, you send your kid to me and I'll teach him to play the piano, and you go back home, and it's not. When they're looking after these children, they are like their parents. They are their carers.
A family.
Yeah, a family and their carers. So they will teach them whatever they need to teach to develop and grow. So teaching is not something that will come out of it, but there's different types of teaching, and people, as we know today, the schools are restructuring too, because they're not just making the kids sit there and learn these
and that's
facts.
the difference now between training.
Yeah, they're teaching children to learn, to seek
teaching.
knowledge, and to find their own knowledge. They're teaching them research and things. So we see these revolutions happening that they're talking about in Oahspe, in Jehovah's Kingdom on earth. These things are already happening all over the world. Mm-hmm. So, as I said, it's not just one particular time where Jehovah's Kingdom is just going to, come in one place and here it is in perfection. where this whole of humanity is working towards it. So by that time, you know, there'll be a lot of cleansing. You know, a lot of people having vegan children. You know, and those children will carry it on. So there'll be generations of clearing children. So their spiritual senses will be a lot more developed than what we are. We're all first generation from meat eating, and the meat eating closes the senses and brings people down to the corporeal beast
actually
level.
eating animal substance.
Yeah,
Any animal substance.
animal substance. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah, so it's not a personal thing. It's not
No.
and this is one of the things that I
what
felt
isn't
that.
what isn't a personal?
Well, when you're reading like the Oahspe and these things, you know, so well, I can't do that. I'm not at that level. Well, it's not a personal thing where you have to be at a certain level, and otherwise you're evil or you're not good enough.
or you're out the door.
No, this is, you know, Oahspe is showing a big picture, you know, over time, and we fit in there. We all fit in there, and we're helping. We're like the steps that those children are going to step on, because we're going to help them to move. So their life is going to be very different to how ours is. You know, and their expectations, the standards are going to be different to ours.
Higher.
Yeah, and their understanding is going to be different. Like it's a different world.
Tay asked again, who here are capable and desirous of being leaders? Let them speak. More than 1,000 cried out, here! That is my part. I'm suited toward by nature, and by experience and great wisdom. Yeah, right, okay. Well, maybe not. Well, we'll see. Tay said to them, behold the spirit of the age in which we live. No man desires a leader or dictator over him. For that reason, go your ways also. I have no use for you. Okay, now,
Just keep reading.
Tay asked again, who here have made a study of this subject? What does this subject refer to? Asked the question. And are prepared to be lecturers, teachers, and advisors. Let them speak. Okay, now, this, to me, this is sort of a catch-all phrase, because this, to me, this is like combining a bunch of meanings into a tiny space. In a few words, they're saying a lot. And a study of this subject, and what this subject refers to, is all those things that are coming afterward. Now, but it also includes that leader thing before too. You know, who's made a study of being a leader, but not just a leader, but who's made a study of being anything: diet, clothing, social intercourse, health, marriage, worship. You know, you have universities today, and this is the old education model, where in the old days, and especially when this was written back in 1880, people would go, the universities, the higher level, only just starting to look like what they do today. But back then, people would just, the wealthy would go around around Europe to the wise people, who they considered, you know, people considered them to be wise, and they'd sit around, they'd listen, and they'd ask questions, and there was no formal sort of study to speak, but they were like receptacles being filled, and that's okay. There's a time and a season for something like that, but to base the whole education system on that, and to base, you know, and say, okay, well, this is it. It's about pouring all this information into you, so you become this better person or whatever. But no, but that's not what's being talked about in Jehovah's Kingdom on Earth. In Jehovah's Kingdom on Earth, it's about helping you to find Jehovah within you. It's helping you to find out your relationship with Jehovah, and how Jehovah is directly inspiring you to do what it is that you do. And what is that inspiration? And that's what the education is. The education is training. What's the training rather than teaching? The training means that has like a practical sense to it. like going from A to B to C to D, it's doing something, and they talk about it in Oahspe, and they're accomplishing what the hands and all that. But even now in education today, there's been this movement toward children working together in projects. And so let's find out about, and this is how we learn about statistics or mathematics, or we learn about the social order, or whatever it is that they're learning about in history, is that they have a project and they do a project together, and that's where the learning comes in. It becomes a joy instead of them sitting there, and having that stuff just sort of poured into that old thing. And so to me what they're saying is, okay, who desires to be one of these people who are throwing in all this stuff? And not to say that that's bad, because like I said, like there's time and a place for everything like that, and to be filled with information like that. But as far as founding Jehovah's kingdom on earth, as far as that, the fullness of it here that's being spoken of, like the pinnacle, the very pinnacle of it, it's not the very pinnacle of it. And so Tay says, hey, I got all these babes here. They don't care two hoots about all your highfalutin philosophies or whatever it is that you're talking about. It may be great wisdom, but it's not doing them any good. Great wisdom for them is having a dry diaper, and food in the belly, and their needs taken care of. That's the important part. So to me, that's
that's what they need right now. That's what
they needed right then.
So having to be able to know what the needs of your child or
your student, or your client, or your business partner, or your marriage partner, or your family members.
I remember when I was at school, kids would go to school, and then they found that some children were having trouble, so they started to make a breakfast program, because these were poor children who didn't get enough to eat. So when the children came to school, they gave them some food before they went to class, because they started to become more aware of what the needs are of those children.